There comes a point in every person's life where they realize that waiting for the right mood, the right time, or the right feeling is not going to change anything. Dreams stay dreams not because they are impossible, but because action is delayed again and again. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. Your mind is not naturally designed to help you achieve greatness. It is designed to keep you safe, comfortable, and energy efficient. That is why you avoid difficult tasks. That is why you procrastinate, even when you know what must be done. This is not a personal failure. It is a natural pattern. But what is natural is not always what is useful. If you want to grow, you must go against this pattern. You must learn how to take control of your mind instead of being controlled. This journey is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming stronger than your excuses. It is about building the ability to act even when you do not feel like it. Because the people who succeed are not the ones who always feel motivated. They are the ones who move forward despite resistance. This guide is built on reality, not fantasy. It will not promise instant change. It will not tell you that everything becomes easy. Instead, it will show you how to face difficulty and still move forward. You will learn how your mind works, why it resists effort, and how to train it step by step, with simple examples that connect to real life. Because forcing your mind to do hard things is not about pressure. It is about understanding discipline, building habits, and creating a new identity. By the end of this journey, you will not just think differently. You will act differently. And that is where real change begins. Chapter 1. The truth about hard things. Waiting to feel motivated. Waiting for the perfect moment. But that moment almost never comes. The biggest lie you have been told is that you need motivation before action. In reality, action comes first and motivation follows. Your mind is built to avoid effort. It wants comfort. It wants ease. It wants familiarity. Because in its basic design, comfort means safety. So when you try to do something hard, like studying for long hours, waking up early, or pushing your limits, your mind creates resistance. It tells you to stop. It tells you that you can do it later. This voice feels real and powerful. But it is not truth. It is protection. And protection in the modern world often becomes limitation. Think about a simple example. A student has an exam in a few days. They know they need to study. They understand the importance. They even plan their schedule. But when the time comes to actually sit and start studying, they feel a strong urge to do something else. They check their phone. They watch videos. They tell themselves they will start in a few minutes. Hours pass and nothing meaningful is done. Now ask yourself, did that student lack intelligence? No. Did they not understand what to do? No. The problem was not knowledge. The problem was action. And action was blocked by resistance. This is where most people get stuck. They think something is wrong with them. But nothing is wrong. This is how the mind works. Now consider another student. This student also feels resistance. They also do not feel like studying. But instead of waiting for the feeling to change, they take a different approach. They sit down and start with a small step. Maybe just reading one page. Maybe just reviewing one topic. At first, it feels their mind still tries to distract them. But after a few minutes, something changes. The resistance becomes weaker. Focus slowly increases. And before they realize it, they are studying properly. What happened? They did not become suddenly motivated. They simply started. This is the truth most people never understand. Starting is the hardest part. Once you begin, the mind begins to follow. This is because action reduces uncertainty. When something is unknown, it feels difficult. When you begin, it becomes familiar. And familiarity reduces fear. Hard things are not always hard because of the work. They are hard because of the resistance before starting. Another example. Imagine someone who wants to go to the gym. They plan it for days. They think about getting fit. They imagine results. But every day they delay. They feel tired. They feel lazy. They tell themselves tomorrow. Finally, one day they force themselves to go. The first few minutes feel uncomfortable. But as they continue moving, their energy increases. After finishing, they feel good. Now, the important question. Was the workout the hardest part? Or was starting the hardest part? For most people, starting is the real challenge. This is the pattern you must understand. Your mind exaggerates difficulty before action, and reduces difficulty after action begins. If you wait for your mind to approve, you will stay stuck. Because your mind will always try to protect you from effort. The way forward is not to eliminate resistance. That is not possible. The way forward is to act despite resistance. You must learn to move before you feel ready. You must learn to start even when your mind says no. Because every time you do this, you weaken the control and you strengthen your ability to act. Over time, this changes everything. Tasks that once felt impossible become manageable. Things you avoided become part of your routine. You do not become fearless. You become stronger than your fear. This is the first step in forcing your mind to do hard things. Not by fighting it with anger, not by waiting for motivation, but by understanding one simple truth. Action comes first. Everything else follows. Chapter 2. Why your mind resists effort. Your mind is not built for achievement. It is built for survival. Long before modern life existed, human beings lived in environments where energy was limited and danger was real. In those conditions, saving energy was important. Avoiding unnecessary effort. This system still exists inside you today. But the world has changed. Now success requires effort-focused learning and discipline. But your brain still tries to conserve energy. This creates a conflict. You want to improve, but your mind wants to stay comfortable. This is why you feel resistance. Not because you are weak, but because your brain is doing what it was designed to do. However, what once protected you can now hold you back. Think about how easy it is to spend hours on your phone. Watching videos, scrolling endlessly, switching between apps. Your brain loves this. It requires no effort. It gives quick rewards. It feels safe and easy. Now compare that to studying or working on a difficult task. It requires focus. It demands effort. It does not give instant reward. So your brain reacts differently. It creates excuses. It creates distraction. It creates discomfort. This is not random. It is a pattern. Your brain chooses the path of least resistance. Example: a student sits down to study. Within minutes, they feel restless. They start thinking about other things. They suddenly remember something else they need to do. Their mind pulls them away. But when the same student uses their phone for hours, they feel no resistance. Time passes quickly. Why? Because one activity requires effort, and the other does not. Now consider another example. A person decides to wake up early. The night before, they feel motivated. They set alarms. They make plans. But in the morning, when the alarm rings, everything changes. Their mind becomes active. It tells them to sleep more. It tells them they need rest. It tells them they can start tomorrow. In that moment, the bed feels more comfortable than their goals. So they go back to sleep. Later, they regret it. This cycle repeats again and again. The problem is not lack of desire. The problem is the brain choosing comfort over effort. But here is the important truth. This system can be trained. Your brain is adaptable. It learns from repetition. Every time you avoid effort, you strengthen the habit of avoidance. Every time you face effort, you weaken resistance. Think of it like training a muscle. If you never use it, it becomes weak. If you use it regularly, it becomes strong. Your ability to do hard things works the same way. Example: a person who has never exercised will find even small workouts difficult. Their body resists. Their mind complains. Everything feels uncomfortable. But if they continue day after day, something changes. The same workout becomes easier. Their body adapts. Their mind stops resisting as much. What was once hard becomes normal. This is how adaptation works. The brain learns through experience. If you consistently do hard things, your brain begins to accept them. It no longer treats them as threats. Instead, it begins to see them as part of your routine. But if you constantly avoid difficulty, your brain becomes more sensitive. Even small tasks feel overwhelming. This is why avoidance makes things harder over time. And action makes things easier. Another important point. Your brain is driven by reward. It prefers immediate reward over delayed reward. Scrolling your phone gives instant pleasure. Eating junk food gives instant satisfaction. But studying, working, or building skills gives delayed reward. The result comes later. This makes it harder for your brain to choose these actions, because it does not feel the benefit immediately. Understanding this changes how you see your struggle. You are not lazy. You are responding to a system that favors ease and instant reward. But knowing this gives you power. Because once you understand the system, you can work against it. You can create your own rules. You can train yourself to act even when there is no immediate reward. And over time, something powerful happens. The effort itself starts to feel normal. The discomfort becomes familiar. The resistance becomes weaker. You begin to take control. Forcing your mind to do hard things does not mean removing resistance. It means acting even when resistance is present. It means teaching your brain a new pattern. Effort is not danger. Discomfort is not something to escape. It is something to move through. But because they try to change everything at once, they decide that from tomorrow, everything will be different. They will wake up early. They will study for hours. They will exercise every day. They will fix their habits instantly. This sounds powerful in the mind. But in reality, it almost always fails. Because your brain rejects sudden extreme change. When you try to do too much at once, your mind sees it as a threat. It creates strong resistance. It makes you feel overwhelmed. It pushes you back to comfort. This is why people start strong and quit quickly. The problem is not effort. The problem is starting too big. Real change does not happen through sudden intensity. It happens through small, consistent steps. This is where the power of small starts comes in. Instead of trying to do everything, you focus on beginning. Just beginning. If you want to study, do not plan 5 hours. Start with 10 minutes. If you want to exercise, do not plan a full workout. Start with a few simple movements. If you want to build focus, do not expect perfection. Start with a short period of attention. This may seem too small. Your mind may say this is not enough. But this is exactly why it works. Small actions do not trigger strong resistance. They feel manageable. They feel possible. And once you begin, something important happens. Momentum starts to build. Example: a student plans to study for 3 hours. They sit down and feel overwhelmed. Their mind starts to resist. They delay and avoid. Eventually, they do nothing. Now consider another student. They tell themselves they will study for just 10 minutes. This feels easy, so they start. After 10 minutes, they are already focused. Stopping feels harder so they keep going. They end up studying for much longer than planned. The difference is not discipline. The difference is how they started. Small starts break the barrier of resistance. Once the barrier is broken, action becomes easier. Another example: A person wants to start exercising. They imagine long workouts, intense routines, and strict schedules. This creates pressure. They feel like they must do everything, so they delay. Now imagine they change their approach. They decide to do just 5 minutes of exercise. This feels simple. They begin without hesitation. After starting, they feel more energy. They continue beyond 5 minutes. Over time, this small habit grows into a full routine. This is how real change happens. Not through force, but through consistency. Small actions repeated daily create strong habits. And strong habits create a strong identity. There is another important reason why small starts work. They build trust with yourself. Every time you plan something big and fail to do it, you weaken your confidence. You begin to doubt yourself. But when you set small goals and complete them, you build trust. You prove to yourself that you can follow through. Example: if you promise to study for 5 hours and do nothing, you feel disappointed. But if you promise to study for 10 minutes and complete it, you feel successful. That success matters. Because success builds belief, and belief drives action. Over time, these small wins add up. They create a pattern. You become someone who starts. You become someone who continues. You become someone who finishes. This is how identity changes, but through small repeated actions. Many people ignore small efforts because they want fast results. They underestimate the power of consistency. But small steps done daily are stronger than big efforts done rarely. Think about learning a skill. If you practice a little every day, you improve steadily. If you practice once in a while, you struggle to progress. Consistency beats intensity. Small starts make consistency possible because they remove the pressure of perfection. They allow you to show up even on difficult days, even when you feel tired, even when you feel unmotivated. You can still take a small step, and that step keeps the habit alive. This is the key. Never break the chain of action, even if the effort is small. Because once you stop completely, it becomes harder to restart. But if you keep moving even slowly, you maintain momentum. Forcing your mind to do hard things does not begin with doing something big. It begins with doing something small, something simple, something manageable, and then repeating it again and again, until what was once difficult becomes natural. This is the power of small starts. It is not about doing less. It is about making sure you begin. Because everything changes the moment you start. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel confident, but feelings are unstable. They change constantly. They depend on mood, energy, environment, and even small events. If your actions depend on feelings, your life will become inconsistent. Some days you will work hard. Other days you will do nothing. This creates a cycle of progress and failure. To break this cycle, you must understand one powerful truth. Feelings are temporary, but actions create results. Discipline is the ability to act without depending on how you feel. It means doing what needs to be done, even when you do not feel like doing it. This is not easy, because your mind will always try to guide you toward comfort. But discipline requires you to go in the opposite direction. Example: a student wakes up in the morning. They feel tired. Their mind tells them to sleep more. If they follow that feeling, they stay in bed. But they do not argue with their feelings. They do not wait for motivation. They simply get up. They follow a decision, not a mood. Another example: a person plans to study in the evening. When the time comes, they feel distracted. They feel low energy. They feel like delaying. If they rely on emotion, they will postpone. But if they rely on discipline, they will start anyway. Even if it feels uncomfortable. Even if focus is not perfect. Because discipline is not about feeling good. It is about doing what matters. This is where many people get confused. They think successful people always feel motivated. But the truth is different. Successful people often feel the same resistance as everyone else. They just do not let it control their actions. They have built systems. They have created routines. They have trained themselves to act regardless of emotion. Think about an athlete. They train every day. Do they always feel like training? No. Some days they feel tired. Some days they feel unmotivated. But they still show up. Because they understand that consistency matters more than mood. Another example. A writer sits down to write. Some days ideas flow easily. Other days nothing comes. If they only write when they feel inspired, they will never, so they write anyway. They trust the process, not the feeling. This is the mindset you must develop. You must stop asking, do I feel like doing this? And start asking what needs to be done. Then act on that answer. There is another important point. Action can change your feelings, not the other way around. When you start working, your energy often increases. When you begin a task, your focus improves. When you take action, your mood shifts. Example. A person feels lazy and does not want to study. If they stay inactive, their laziness, but if they force themselves to start even for a short time, their mind begins to engage. Their energy rises. Their resistance decreases. So instead of waiting to feel ready, they become ready by acting. This is how discipline works. It breaks the illusion that feelings must come first. It shows that action can lead the way. Another key aspect of discipline is routine. When you repeat the same action at the same time every day, it becomes automatic. You reduce the need for decision. You remove the chance for excuses. Example. If you decide every day when to study, your mind will try. But if you create a fixed study time, it becomes part of your routine. You do not think about it. You just do it. This reduces resistance. Because habits require less mental effort than decisions. Over time, discipline becomes easier. Not because tasks become simple, but because your response becomes automatic. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop wasting energy on thinking whether you should act. You simply act. Forcing your mind to do hard things is not about forcing feelings to change. It is about building the ability to act even when feelings are against you. It is about creating a system where action is non-negotiable, where effort is part of your identity, and where results are built through consistency. You do not need perfect motivation. You need reliable discipline. Because in the long run, discipline will take you further than emotion ever can. Chapter 5. Remove the easy escapes. One of the biggest reasons your mind avoids hard things is because easy alternatives are always available. You do not live in a world where distraction is rare. You live in a world where distraction is everywhere. Your phone, social media, entertainment, comfort. All of these are designed to pull your attention away from effort, and your brain naturally chooses them. Not because you are weak, but because they are easier. If you try to rely only on willpower, you will lose most of the time. Because willpower gets tired, but your environment is always there. This is why changing your environment is one of the most powerful ways to force your mind to do hard things. Instead of fighting distractions, you remove them. Instead of resisting temptation, you make it harder to reach. Example. A student wants to study, but keeps checking their phone. Every notification pulls their attention. But after some time, they give in. Now consider a different approach. They place their phone in another room. They turn off notifications. They remove the source of distraction. Now when they sit to study, there is nothing pulling them away. Focus becomes easier. The task does not change, but the environment does. And that changes everything. Another example. A person wants to wake up early. They set an alarm, but keep their phone next to their bed. When the alarm rings, they turn it off and go back to sleep. The bed is too comfortable. The effort to get up feels too big. Now imagine they place the alarm far from the bed. When it rings, they must stand up to turn it off. Once they are already out of bed, going back becomes less likely. A small change in environment creates a big change. This is how you reduce resistance. You design your surroundings in a way that supports action. There is another side to this. Not only should you remove distractions, you should also make good actions easier. Example: if you want to study, keep your books ready. Keep your study space clean. Make it simple to begin. If starting requires too many steps, your mind will delay. But if everything is prepared, starting becomes natural. Another example: if you want to exercise, keep your clothes ready. Keep your space open. Remove barriers. The easier it is to begin, the more likely you are to act. This is a powerful rule. Make hard things easier to start. Make easy distractions harder to access. Many people underestimate how much their surroundings affect them. They believe success is about strong will. But in reality, behavior is often shaped by environment. If you sit in a room full of distractions, you will get distracted. If you sit in a focused environment, you will work better. Even small details matter. Noise, light, cleanliness, all influence your ability to focus. Example: a cluttered space can create mental stress. A clean space can create clarity. When your environment is organized, your mind feels more in control. This makes it easier to do difficult tasks. There is also the influence of people. The people around you affect your behavior. If you spend time with those who avoid effort, you may start doing the same. If you spend time with those who work hard, you are more likely to follow. Example: a student surrounded by friends who waste time may struggle to stay focused. But a student surrounded by serious learners will naturally study more. This is not about pressure. It is about influence. Your environment is not just physical. It is also social. To force your mind to do hard things, you must build an environment that supports growth. This does not require extreme changes. It requires smart changes. Remove what distracts you. Add what supports you. Reduce friction for good habits. Increase friction for bad habits. Over time, this creates a system where doing the right thing becomes easier, and avoiding it becomes harder. You no longer rely only on motivation. Your surroundings guide your actions. This is how you take control, not by fighting your mind, but by shaping the world around you, so that the path of effort becomes the natural choice. When easy escapes. Chapter 6: Pain is the path. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid pain. They look for comfort. They search for ease. They choose what feels good in the moment. But the truth is simple. Growth does not live in comfort. It lives in discomfort. Every time you try to do something meaningful, you will face resistance. You will feel tired. You will feel pressure. You will feel like stopping. This feeling is what most people call pain, and their first reaction is to escape it. But what they do not understand is that this pain is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that change is happening. Your mind and body are being pushed beyond their current limits. That is how growth works. Example: a student is studying a difficult topic. At first, everything feels confusing. Their mind struggles to understand. They feel frustrated. They feel like quitting. But if they stay with it, something begins to shift. Slowly, concepts become clear. Understanding increases. The struggle turns into progress. If they had stopped at the first sign of discomfort, they would never learn. Another example: a person starts exercising. The first few days feel hard. Their body aches. Their muscles feel weak. They feel exhausted. This is uncomfortable. But this discomfort is the process of growth. If they continue, their body adapts. Strength increases. Endurance improves. What once felt painful becomes normal. Pain is not always physical. It can also be mental. The discomfort of focus, the pressure of responsibility, the fear of failure. All of these are forms of pain. And all of them are part of progress. Think about someone trying to build a new habit. At the beginning, everything feels difficult. Waking up early feels uncomfortable. Sitting to work feels difficult. Staying consistent feels exhausting. But this phase does not last forever. If they continue, the same actions become easier. The mind adapts. What once required effort becomes routine. This is the transformation most people never reach, because they stop too early. They experience discomfort and think so they go back to what feels easy. And they stay in the same place. The difference between those who grow and those who stay stuck is simple. One group, the other, learns to face it. This does not mean you should harm yourself or ignore real limits. It means you should understand the difference between harmful pain and growth discomfort. Harmful pain damages you. Growth discomfort develops you. Example: pushing yourself to study when you feel lazy is growth discomfort. Ignoring serious health problems is harmful. You must learn to recognize the difference. Another important point: pain often comes before reward. You do not feel the benefit immediately. You feel the effort first. This is why many people give up, because they expect results too soon. But real results take time. Example: a person who starts learning a skill may not see improvement immediately. They may feel slow and frustrated. But if they continue practicing daily, improvement becomes visible. The reward appears after consistent effort. This delay between effort and reward is where most people fail. They do not stay long enough. To force your mind to do hard things, you must change how you see pain. Instead of avoiding it, you accept it. Instead of fearing it, you understand it. When you feel resistance, you remind yourself. This is part of the process. This is where growth happens. Another example: a person running feels like stopping halfway. Their body is tired. Their breathing is heavy. Their mind tells them to quit. But they take one more step, then another. Each step feels difficult. But with each step, they become stronger. That moment of struggle is where improvement happens, not when everything feels easy. You must train yourself to stay in that moment, to continue even when it is uncomfortable, because that is where change begins. Over time, something powerful happens. Your relationship with pain changes. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. You become more resilient. You develop mental strength. And with that strength, hard things become less intimidating. They do not disappear, but they no longer control you. Forcing your mind to do hard things is not about eliminating discomfort. It is about learning to move through it, to stay with it, to grow within it, because the path you are trying to walk is built on effort, and effort always comes with discomfort. But on the other side of that discomfort is a stronger version of you. Chapter 7: Identity Shift. Most people try to change their actions without changing how they see themselves. They focus on what they do, but ignore who they believe they are. This creates a problem, because your actions are strongly connected to your identity. If you believe something about yourself, you will act in a way that supports that belief, even if it holds you back. Example: a person says this belief becomes part of their identity. So when they face a difficult task, their mind quickly accepts avoidance. They delay. They quit. They repeat the same pattern. Not because they cannot act differently, but because their identity is guiding their behavior. Now consider another person. They say, I am disciplined. Even if they are not perfect, they begin to act in line with that belief. They try harder. They show up more. They push through resistance. Because their identity supports effort. This is why identity matters. If you want to force your mind to do hard things, you must change how you see yourself. You must stop saying, I am trying, and start saying, I am becoming. The difference is powerful. Trying feels temporary. Becoming feels permanent. Example. Instead of saying, I am trying to study, say, I am a serious student. Instead of saying, I am trying to wake up early, say, I am someone who wakes up early. At first, this may feel strange, because your current actions may not fully match this identity. But that is part of the process. Identity is not built in one moment. It is built through repeated proof. Every time you act in line with your new identity, you strengthen it. Every time you go against it, you weaken it. Example. If you say, I am disciplined, but continue to avoid effort, your mind will not accept. But if you take small, consistent actions, your mind begins to adjust. You create evidence. That evidence builds belief. And belief shapes behavior. This is how identity evolves. Another important idea. You do not need to change everything at once. You only need to prove your new identity in small ways. Example. If you want to become a focused person, start by focusing for a short time each day. If you want to become strong, start with simple exercises. Each small action is a vote for the person you want to become. Over time, these votes add up. They form a pattern. That pattern becomes your identity. There is also the opposite side. If you constantly act against your goals, you build a negative identity. Example. A person who repeatedly avoids work begins to believe they are not capable. This belief reduces their effort even more. It becomes a cycle. Action shapes identity, and identity shapes action. To break this cycle, you must interrupt it. You must start acting in a new way, even if it feels uncomfortable. Even if it feels unnatural. Because change always feels unnatural at the beginning. Another example. At first, they feel like someone who does not belong. They feel out of place. But if they continue showing up, something changes. They begin to feel like a person who exercises. Their identity shifts. And once identity shifts, behavior becomes easier. You no longer force yourself as much, because it becomes part of who you are. This is the goal. Not just to do hard things occasionally, but to become someone who naturally does them. This reduces internal conflict, because your actions and identity are aligned. There is less resistance, more consistency, more confidence. Another key point, the words you use about yourself matter. If you constantly say, I cannot do this, your mind accepts it. If you say, I am improving, your mind becomes open to growth. Your internal language shapes your identity, and your identity shapes your future. To force your mind to do hard things, you must take control of that language. Replace limitation with growth. Replace doubt with possibility. And most importantly, support your words with action. Because identity without action is just imagination. But identity with action becomes reality. Over time, you will notice a shift. You no longer see hard things as something outside. You begin to see them as part of who you are. And when that happens, discipline becomes easier, consistency becomes natural, growth becomes continuous. You are no longer forcing your mind. You are becoming someone who moves forward regardless of difficulty. That is the power of Identity Shift Chapter 8. They wait for moments of high energy. They wait for strong motivation. They wait for the perfect day to give their best effort. When that moment comes, they work very hard. But the problem is that these moments do not last. After a short time, their energy drops, their motivation fades, and they stop. This creates a cycle. Short bursts of effort followed by long periods of inactivity. This cycle feels productive in the moment, but in reality, it leads to very little progress. Because real growth does not come from intensity, it comes from consistency. Consistency means showing up again and again, even when you do not feel like it, even when energy is low, even when progress feels slow. It is not exciting, but it is powerful. Example: a student studies for 1 hour every day. At first, it may not seem like much, but over weeks and months, that effort builds. Knowledge increases, understanding deepens, confidence grows. Now compare this to another student. They study for 10 hours in one day, then do nothing for several days. They forget what they learned. They struggle to maintain focus. They do not build momentum. Even though they worked harder in one moment, they achieve less overall. The difference is consistency. Small repeated effort creates lasting results. Another example: a person wants to get fit. They exercise intensely for a few days. They push themselves hard, but then they feel tired and stop. Days pass without activity. They start again with the same intensity and stop again. This pattern continues. Now imagine another person. They exercise for a short time every day. Not extreme, not perfect, but consistent. Over time, their body adapts. Strength builds gradually. Endurance improves. They create a stable habit. This is how real transformation happens. Not through extreme effort, but through repeated action. There is another reason why consistency works. It reduces resistance. When you do something regularly, your mind becomes familiar with it. It no longer feels new, it becomes part of your routine. Example: the first time you wake up early, it feels hard. Your body resists, your mind complains. But if you do it every day, your system adjusts. Waking up early becomes normal. The effort required decreases. This is the power of repetition. It turns difficulty into familiarity. And familiarity reduces resistance. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. When you show up daily, you prove that you can rely on your own actions. This builds confidence. Not the type of confidence that comes from thinking, but the type that comes from doing. Example: if you plan to study every day and follow through, you begin to trust your discipline. You no longer doubt your ability to act. But if you act only occasionally, your confidence remains weak, because there is no stable pattern. Another important point: consistency does not mean perfection. You will have days where your effort is low. You will have moments where focus is not strong. That is normal. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to keep going. Example: on some days, you may study for a long time. On other days, you may only manage a short session. Both matter, because both keep the habit alive. Breaking consistency is what creates difficulty. Restarting always feels harder than. This is why it is important to never stop completely. Even a small action is enough to maintain progress. Think of it like a chain. Each day you act, you add a link. If you stop, the chain breaks, and rebuilding it takes effort. But if you keep adding links, even small ones, the chain becomes strong. Another example: a writer who writes a little every day will finish more work than someone who waits for inspiration, because they are always moving forward. Slow progress is still progress, and steady progress leads to results. To force your mind to do hard things, you must shift your focus. Do not chase intensity. Chase consistency. Do not ask, how much can I do today? Ask, can I show up today? Because showing up is the foundation. Once you show up, you create the chance, but if you do not show up, nothing happens. Over time, consistency creates momentum. Momentum makes action easier. And when action becomes easier, your results improve. This is the long-term advantage. While others start and stop, you continue. While others rely on motivation, you rely on habit. And that difference separates progress from stagnation. Consistency may feel slow, but it is unstoppable. And in the end, it always wins. Chapter 9. Control your inner voice. Your mind is constant. Sometimes it encourages you. Sometimes it discourages you. Most of the time it resists effort. It says you are tired. It says you cannot do it. It says this is too hard. These thoughts feel real and convincing. And if you listen to them without question, they control your behavior. You delay. You quit. You settle for less. But here is the truth. Your thoughts are not commands. They are suggestions. You get to decide which thoughts to follow and which to ignore. Example. A student sits down to study. Their mind says, I am too tired. If they believe it, they get up. But if they recognize it as a thought, they do not have to obey it. They can say, I will start anyway, even if I feel tired. And then begin. Another example. A person decides to exercise. Their mind says, stop now, it is too hard. If they listen, they quit. If they act despite the thought, they grow stronger. This is the power of controlling your inner voice. Your thoughts are not always accurate. They are often biased. They exaggerate difficulty. They inflate fear. They minimize your ability. This is natural. Your brain is designed to protect you from discomfort. But protection in the modern world often looks like resistance. You must learn to speak back to your mind, to respond instead of react. Example. When your mind says this is too hard, you say I can start small and continue. When your mind says later, you say no. When your mind says quit, you say one more step. This is how limits expand. Every time you challenge your inner voice, you strengthen your ability to act. You are training your mind to accept effort as normal. Another important point. Your inner voice is also influenced by repetition. The more you respond with action, the stronger your mental control becomes. Over time, your thoughts have less power over your behavior. Example. A person who repeatedly starts studying despite resistance gradually experiences less hesitation. The voice that once stopped them becomes background noise. You are no longer reacting to every thought. You are deciding what to do. This requires practice. It is not easy at first. Your mind will fight. It will generate thousands of excuses. It will create doubt. But every time you act in spite of it, you grow stronger. You develop mental resilience. And resilience is what allows you to do hard things consistently. Another key aspect. Language matters. The words you use in your mind shape your perception. Instead of saying, I cannot handle this, say, I will start and figure it out. Instead of thinking this is impossible, say this is difficult but possible. Your inner dialogue can be a source of strength or weakness. You choose. Example. A person facing a difficult project, they say I am not ready and freeze. Another person feels the same fear, but says I will start anyway and moves forward. Both feel discomfort. Both have doubts. But only the second person acts, and action creates results. Controlling your inner voice also helps with emotional regulation. When you face hard tasks, your mind will create stress. Your inner dialogue determines whether stress paralyzes you or drives you forward. Example. A runner feels exhaustion and pain. Their mind says stop. If they follow the thought, they quit. If they respond with I can take one more step, they continue. And step by step, they overcome resistance. Every time you do this, you prove to yourself that you can act regardless of mental chatter. This builds confidence. Not just confidence in ability, but confidence in your own mind. You begin to trust yourself. to trust your capacity. And once you trust yourself, hard things feel less intimidating. Resistance is still present, but it is no longer controlling you. You are the one leading. Your inner voice becomes a tool instead of an obstacle. And that is how you force your mind to do hard things. Not by eliminating thoughts, but by mastering your response to them. Chapter 10. Action creates confidence. Most people believe that confidence comes first and action follows. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel capable. They wait to feel fearless. But in reality, confidence is not a prerequisite. It is a product of action. Every time you do something difficult, you prove to yourself that you can. That proof builds confidence. Not in theory, not in imagination, but in reality. Example: a person has never spoken in public. They feel fear and doubt. If they wait to feel confident, they will never speak. But if they act and give a small talk or presentation, they experience something important. They survived. They managed. They learned. That experience creates confidence. Another example: a student has never completed a difficult assignment. They feel unsure of their ability. If they avoid the task, they remain uncertain. But if they start and finish the work, they prove to themselves they can do it. Confidence grows through completion, not anticipation. This principle works in every area of life: fitness, learning, work, relationships. You do not wait to feel capable. You act, and through action capability grows. Another important point: confidence from action is reliable. Motivation and feelings are temporary. They come and go. But the proof of what you have already done stays with you. Example: a person who runs consistently every day develops confidence in their body and mind. Even on days they feel tired, they remember past success and keep going. That memory fuels action. It creates trust in themselves. Action also reduces fear. When you face a challenge for the first time, your mind exaggerates risk. Everything feels uncertain. But once you act, your mind learns that you can handle difficulty. Fear decreases. Example: a person afraid of rejection avoids speaking to someone new. When they finally initiate a conversation, they realize the outcome is manageable. The fear diminishes. Action teaches your mind reality. It replaces imagined limitations with actual experience. Another key aspect: confidence is cumulative. Every small action contributes. Every completion builds belief. Over time, you stop relying on temporary feelings of courage, because you know through experience that you can act. Example: a writer starts writing small sections daily. At first, they doubt every sentence. But after finishing multiple chapters, they gain confidence in their skill. They trust their ability because they have proven it repeatedly. This is why waiting to feel confident is a trap. Confidence is not a spark. It is a muscle, and muscles grow only through use. Every time you act, you exercise your confidence. Even small actions matter. Even minor achievements count. They accumulate into a strong foundation. Another point: action creates momentum. Once you begin the process of doing hard things, one success leads to another. Each completed task makes the next one easier. Your mind starts to expect capability rather than failure. Example: a person starts exercising regularly. Completing workouts builds physical and mental confidence. They attempt harder exercises. They push longer. They see progress. This would not happen without the initial action. The first step creates a chain reaction. The same applies to learning, business, or personal growth. The first attempt is the hardest. After that, momentum develops. Confidence becomes automatic. The final truth is simple: if you wait for confidence, you wait forever. If you act, you create confidence. Action does not just produce results. It produces belief in yourself. It teaches your mind that effort is safe and capable. It turns fear into courage. It turns hesitation into momentum. And this is the ultimate way to force your mind to do hard things. Not by imagining courage, not by waiting for motivation, but by starting, by continuing, by proving to yourself through action that you can conclusion. It is about understanding how your mind works. It is about learning to act despite resistance. It is about building habits and shaping identity. The journey begins with awareness. You must see that your mind is designed to avoid effort, that resistance is natural, that discomfort is a sign of growth, and that feelings are unreliable guides. Once you accept this reality, you gain power. You can start small. You can remove distractions. You can act even when tired or unmotivated. You can train your mind through repetition and consistency. Small steps repeated daily become habits. Habits shape identity. Identity shapes your behavior. Every action creates proof. Every completed task builds. Every moment of effort strengthens resilience. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes routine. What once required force becomes natural. Hard things no longer intimidate you. They become part of who you are. This is not a quick fix. It is a long-term process. It requires patience. It requires discipline. It requires persistence. But it works. Every great achievement in history has followed this pattern. The difference between those who succeed and those who do not is not talent or luck. It is action. It is the willingness to do what is hard when no one is watching and when no feeling drives you. You do not wait to feel ready. You do not wait to feel strong. You begin. And by beginning, you become strong. By acting, you gain confidence. By persisting, you change your identity. And through this process, you transform your mind into a tool for achievement rather than a source of resistance. Hard things are never easy. But with the right approach, they become manageable. They become part of your routine. They become stepping stones to growth and excellence. So start now. Start small. Start consistent. Start even when it feels uncomfortable. Because every step forward, no matter how small, is a vote for the person you are becoming. The mind that once resisted will learn to follow. And the life you imagine will become real the end.
Kindly subscribe to my channel.